here more than just the small amount of information that's available to us on the screen. So my name is Doug Dixon. I am the Secretary of the Leadership Council of the Encore Network and involved in many of the affinity groups and helped to organize today's meeting. And we welcome all of you to our first annual Affinity Group Summit. We started with affinity groups about 3 or so years ago, and we've added more as we've gone along. And this is the first time that we've had an opportunity to come together as a group and also introduce ourselves to a wider audience. So we're thrilled that you're here to be a part of this. We think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. We're going to divide our program into two pieces. In the first half, you'll hear about the affinity groups from some of the leaders of the affinity groups. And in the second half, then you'll have a chance to think about what's been said, to respond, to come up with some ideas, and more about that in a moment. But we'll do that mainly in small breakout sessions, and then we'll summarize. I do want to encourage all of you to take advantage of the chat, just as you're doing now, letting us know who you are, where you are, what organizations you're with. If you would like to connect with other people, feel free to put your email address or LinkedIn address there so that people can be in touch with you. Also, use the chat to make any comments or to raise any questions that you have along the way. We encourage you to take advantage of the affinity groups. If you hear something that you think is interesting and you'd like to be a part of affinity groups going forward and haven't had a chance to participate before this, there'll be information about how to do that. And we also, if you're not already a member of the Encore Network, we have a special offer coming to you before the end of the program. So stay tuned for that as well. So, Aaron, if you can share my slides, I'll talk briefly about affinity groups and what they are, how they work, how you can start one, and so on. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the mission of the Encore Network. The Encore Network is a coalition of leaders. You can go to the next slide, Aaron. A coalition of leaders, and leaders come to us from a variety of settings. They come to us from organizations. They come to us from coaching and advisory practices. They come to us from community leaders and so on, community organizations. That's who we are as an organization. What we do is to bring together people who champion the civic, social, and economic contributions of people 50 plus. So this is the Encore in our name. We do that by creating a community of leaders who can then work together, learn together, share together, and act in concert, making some things happen together that couldn't necessarily happen if we worked only as individuals. And why we do this to transform the Encore stage of life, which we define broadly as people who are moving from their careers, either mid-career or late career, into a stage of life where they want to remain more active, want to make a contribution, but before they reach the point where they fully retire. That's what we identify as the Encore stage of life. So that's the broad context. Aaron, if you can move to the next slide. That's the broad context of what we do. Within that broad context, we create opportunities for smaller groups of Encore Network members to get together around a specific area of interest or to create a particular focus. And there's a lot of learning and sharing that goes on in this process for obvious reasons, but we also do things. We're focused on projects, getting things done, making an impact, making a difference. And we, in this process, because they're small groups, create a more intimate connection. We're able to learn to know each other better, and sometimes that sparks relationships and activity that happens outside of the affinity groups. These groups are self-facilitated and they're mostly autonomous, which means that there's an opportunity for the agenda to be driven exactly by the members themselves, where nobody's telling you what to do or how to do it. This is really up to the group itself. They pick the projects, they pick the topics, they move forward with the work that they want to do together. Next slide. So how do the affinity groups fit into our other programming? Well, many of you know that we have monthly events. Those tend to be larger events. Typically, today we had, I don't know, 130 or something signed up. And that's relatively small compared to many of our events. There's a lot of learning and sharing that goes on. There's some calls to action in those events, but they're not the kind of intimate events that I just referred to in terms of affinity groups. So that's another goal of the affinity groups, is to give people an opportunity to not just connect, but also to work together in a more intimate way. We also have coffee chats. These are occasional meetings. They're proposed by individuals. The timing varies. The topics vary. Sometimes they're the beginning of an affinity group. That's the way our last two affinity groups were formed. They started out as coffee chats, where we were basically testing whether there's interest in moving forward with this kind of a group. And then there's a relatively new program called peer consulting, and this is by request, typically a very small focused conversation initiated by a member who says, I'd like some input or feedback on a specific challenge or a specific idea, something that I've been thinking about. I'd love to have some other eyes and ears to help me think through this idea or project or opportunity. So the focus there is on problem solving or development, and that's something you'll be hearing a lot more about in the coming weeks. Next slide. So we have 5 affinity groups currently. As I mentioned, we've been doing this for about 3 years. The first to organize was a group focused on over 50 employment opportunities. And then later in 2021, the Intergenerational Affinity Group focused. 2 years ago, we created an advocacy affinity group, which you'll be hearing more about. And then last year, we created an Encore Entrepreneurship Affinity Group and the Starting and Sustaining an Encore Organization, or what we sometimes or increasingly are thinking about calling emerging Encore organizations, and there are a number of them. So this is an opportunity for those members to get together and to support and help each other. Next slide. The affinity groups do a number of things, and you'll be learning more about that in a moment. But one of the things that they do is to contribute to the monthly program. So I mentioned earlier that that's one of the opportunities that we create for members to learn, share, and work together. This is a list of, I won't go into the details here, but the list of the programs, the monthly programs that have been actually initiated and operated, run by, organized by the affinity groups. So you can see that's grown as our affinity groups have grown. And it's an opportunity for affinity groups sometimes to share information that they've learned with a broader member audience and non-members as well. but also sometimes to launch projects, sometimes to test ideas. So increasingly, our programs are directly informed by the activity of our affinity groups. Next slide. So you might be asking, how do we start an affinity group? Well, it's pretty simple. We try to keep it that way. We want to make sure that the topic is connected to our mission in some way, and that there's enough interest that a handful of people is enough, that it can be sustained. We also encourage the identification of co-leaders. It doesn't have to be the same people all the time, but co-leaders we found is a very effective model in both helping to maintain the details of organizing meetings and agendas and so on, so that it doesn't fall too heavily on a single individual. And also there's a nice opportunity for conversation and sharing of ideas and so on. And then there's a form to kind of formally apply, very simple form, formally apply to the program committee, which says, yeah, this sounds like a great idea, go for it. And then the first meeting is held. In the first meeting and in subsequent meetings, we ask that affinity groups agree on a purpose going forward. Then the groups as I mentioned, set their own agenda. We create a Slack channel for the groups. We create a Zoom link. We create a calendar listing so that people know about the group and where to find them. Then, of course, the promotion of future meetings, the plan for topic speakers and so on is ongoing from there. Next slide. So that is a brief overview of affinity groups. What you'll hear next is more specific information from each of the 5 current affinity groups. And they'll be talking a little bit about the purpose of the group, the kinds of things that they've been working on, and what they're thinking about coming next. And here is the order in which those presentations will occur. You'll first hear from Paula Getz, who is representing the Over 50 Employment Affinity Group. Then Jim McGinley, who runs the Intergenerational Affinity Group along with Clint Wilkins. And then Kara Mahood, who is representing the Advocacy Affinity Group. And then Barb Richardson, who co-leads the Starting and Sustaining an Encore Organization Affinity Group. And finally, Mary Cronin, who co-leads the Encore Entrepreneurship Affinity Group. So with that, you can take down my slides, Aaron, and I'll hand it over to Paula.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon. I see we have some Europeans on here, so good afternoon to you. And my name is Paula Getz. I'm a founder of a nonprofit called New Mexico New. And shout out to my new program manager, Victor Ortiz, who's on, who's leading this now. So next slide. Well, I'm going to go over the 50+ employment affinity group, and in 3 areas. So the first one is probably the more developed one, and that is really help for employers. And we'll talk about the age-friendly employer guide that was developed by this affinity group. And then one that's in process for sure, the help for the 50+ job seeker. And then the non-traditional type employment, self-employment. We'll go over each of those. So help for the employer. So this guide is out, and it came together. It was probably the first big deliverable of Encore Network that I was really impressed with. And I use it all the time. I send this out to lots of people. And so I say, get the guide, and there's the bit.ly there. And we'll put those in the chat, I'm sure, the bit.ly to download that if we could. It's designed, so this guide is designed for hiring managers, HR people, workforce development groups, career counselors, chambers of commerce, anyone who starts to figure out, we want to employ 50+. It's the fastest growing labor segment in the workforce. And we need some help on figuring out, how do we do this? How do we make this more attractive? And so there's the guide. I suggest educate yourself with the guide. And there's a great communication toolkit that's available that will give you presentation pictures, talking points that you could use, sample articles and newsletter. We actually put one in our newsletter once, and sample articles that you can use to write to the newspapers locally, or publications about it. But lots of tools that can help you spread the word about this document out. And so send the guide to people you know. I have sent it out to several different HR people that have talked about, how do I make my jobs more attractive to 50+ job seekers, to people looking for a part-time job or their next endeavor. I send it out regularly, and we've written social media posts on it. I include it in a lot of presentations, and we will, once we're finished with our website, we will have a link for it, and we'll have a section for employers. So then the next one's help for the 50+ job seeker. So right now we've started with a something called the Career Asset Framework. And in there will be a 50+ job seeker guide that can be for the job seeker. It's also going to be a big resource for career coaches, recruiters, hiring managers, people that are now engaged with the 50+ job seeker. And this guide will have a lot of the factors that may need to get addressed or need to get looked at for the job seeker to be successful in getting a job. And right now, with the program that I'm working on, New Mexico New, it's called New Elder World. We're a part of a community college called Central New Mexico Community College, CNM, and a nonprofit called Ingenuity that's within that community college. We're developing the first iteration of it. The team in the Affinity group, we really did a mind map on all those factors and links and resources that could help the 50+ job seeker address that challenge if they're having that challenge, like financial resources. Are they technically able to go for jobs, things like that. So CNM is making the investment through our program to develop the first iteration, which then we will share with the Encore Network and people. It will have, I'll guarantee you, it'll have a lot of New Mexico specific content, but it'll also have a lot of national stuff that's already in there. And so then every team, if you want to take this, then can localize it, if you will, to your state or to your city or to your program. The needs for that is volunteers, once we have it going, volunteers to continue to populate the content. And then once finalized, the same thing as we're asking for the employer guide, get the word out, because these are great resources and no sense anyone reinventing the wheel. Leverage, 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 as they say. All right, so the self-employment, the non-traditional work one, there was a panel held on May 15th that highlighted all the different ways of self-employment. And there is now, of course, a high number of older workers that want this flexibility, autonomy. And the way this is different is it is really looking at, how can I be self-employed? I'm used to being a W-2 worker. How can I be a 1099 worker? And what do I need to consider about that? So with it, there's a starter kit that's in process by this part of the Affinity group that is working on how to be a solopreneur. I love that word, solopreneur, and a self-employed worker, like probably gotchas between 1099 and what to look out for. So this is a joint project, and this is kind of shows the intersectionality of a lot of our affinity groups. This one's a joint project with the Entrepreneurship Affinity Group. So just critical success, that I think we got to reach employers. I think that is one of the biggest issues around 50+ employment. Is I hear a lot of HR people talking, and Amy and several people on, we have talked a lot about employers not quite sure, how do I make these jobs age friendly? How do I approach 50+ workers to make these jobs attractive to them? Once they realize, wow, this is the largest segment of the labor force that's growing, how can we reach this part of this segment? And then just continuing to be very well versed in the benefits of mixed age work groups, not just and the productivity raises and the turnover that goes down when you actually hire older workers into organizations. And then we've got to figure out an evergreen strategy to keep these guides up to date as we get released. And if we do that, I think we'll improve the job search prospects for all older workers, and there'll be a lot of options out there for them. Alternative to those W-2s, 1099s, or fixed projects that people can sign up for. So I think there's a lot of work to do, but we've had fun doing it. And I know that the program that I work on has immensely benefited from the employer's guide and even just speaking through the job seeker guide as we're building it. So I think that's it. I encourage you to check out the guides. And I'll hand mine over to.
I'll take it from here, Aaron. Thanks, Paula. Great job with the 50+ employment group. Aaron, I'm ready if you are. Here we go. Clint Wilkins and I have been co-leading the Intergeneration Affinity Group for the past three years. We've enjoyed the journey of learning from and with our members about the importance of engaging with all generations. Next slide, please. Our purpose is to link generations to create a better future for all. We have a 2024 plan, and the objective that headlines this plan is to expose our members to multiple intergenerational experiences with emphasis on community impact and membership growth. We take inspiration. Just move back, please. I'm not quite done there. Thanks, Aaron. We take inspiration from Chris Farrell's 2022 Forbes article titled "The Future of Aging is Intergenerational," in which he rejects the idea of intergenerational conflict and makes the case for intergenerational collaboration. That's our vision and practice, and gives eloquent testimony to the fact that we're all in this together. Changing attitudes, behaviors, and outcomes related to age and ageism requires we reach people of all ages, especially those who are younger, as well as go beyond superficial exchange and connection to initiatives that produce real results and substantive change. Our programs, Aaron, if you could move to that, please, the next slide. What you have here on the slide are a few that we could fit on the slide, and I'll go through a couple, but you can contact Clint or I about these or any others. Young entrepreneurs in aging provide solutions that better the lives of older adults and their caregivers. We are leveraging a successful October 2023 program in which 5 of their members were involved, and all parties wanted further engagement. Our approach now is they become a member, get started with the peer consulting program that Doug just mentioned, and then we encourage them to engage further with affinity groups that would be relevant to what they're doing, so they can expand their insights and we can learn from them. Just a quick follow-up on the peer consulting. It's open to all members. A one-page application is sent to me, and we have a 1-hour time together. It's a lot of fun and real easy. Moving on to Champions of Caring, another one listed here. We have Barbara Shaman, who founded in 1995 this organization, which does amazing, impactful, intergenerational work with changemakers who are very involved with her over these almost 20 years now. And now she's working on extending her activities to international, I should say, intergenerational social justice cafes, which could have Encore Network involvement. We recently had a very productive meeting with Ashoka Fellow Ibu Patel's Interfaith America organization, which works with campuses, students, faculty, administrative leadership, and company leadership to reduce the polarization in our country by giving them the skills they need to find common ground across deep divides while solving problems on their campuses and in their communities. I'll quickly acknowledge Jim Eisenberg, who did not make it on the slide for his Grandpa's United presentation recently, which really was well received. The bottom chart shows what young leaders want and don't want from older allies. That's our July program, which is open to all Encore Network members and anyone else who's interested. So please register on the website. I'll move now to aspirations. Thank you. And we want to increase our membership and want many of those from younger generations. We want people from all walks of life in concert with the Encore Network mission. And partnering and leveraging other intergenerational work is important to making an impact. Our relationship with Code generates an example of a close partnership where we have a liaison, Michelle Gahey, who works with us on our plans and programs. And we certainly appreciate being part of this affinity group forum. I'll wrap up with the last slide, Aaron. I mentioned that we had a plan, and it started with a late year review of 2023, and we had very high readings on all of our programs, and then agreed in January on the plan for this year. The objective that I cited earlier used the SMART technique: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, with a time frame. And then we developed an action plan to accomplish the objective. And you can see all the elements of the program, of the action plan here. And I have addressed a few of those during our meeting just now. So in conclusion, thanks so much for listening. Feel free to contact Clint or I with questions. We encourage you to join us at the Encore Network to help grow and deliver impact for our membership and communities. And I'll turn it over to Carolyn.
Thank you, Jim. I'm representing the Advocacy Affinity Group today. I'm Carolyn from Vancouver, BC. I'm the founder of an organization called On Your Own Time. So the Advocacy Affinity Group is together to build broader support for changes that we would all like to see in the network connection. Our purpose is to build awareness and broader support for all policy and legislative changes that address ageism and help advance opportunities for people over 50. The group came together about 2 years ago, and that I think they're celebrating their birthday today or close to today. And they developed strategies to change policies and practices that drive or enable ageist attitudes, behaviors, and decisions, which unfortunately are still quite prevalent. We have a policy that includes taking a position on issues that are relevant to the mission, that make a difference to people over 50, and to connect the Encore Network to outcomes or other voices with shared interests. We've done a lot in 2 years. One of the significant outcomes is to, in conjunction with the Over 50 Employment Affinity Group, develop a toolkit that accompanies the Employer's Guide to Engaging Older Workers that Paula talked about in her presentation. We have collaborated with the Encore Roadmap and Age Equity Alliance to advocate with LinkedIn to remove ageist ads. many of you may remember earlier this year, there was a posting of an older woman who was having difficulty understanding technology. LinkedIn or Encore and the Affinity group was successful in having that posting removed in collaboration with LinkedIn. We've promoted efforts to support the Protect Older Workers Against Discrimination Act, which brings back legislation to help employees take action against employers who discriminate against them on the basis of age. We've tracked state efforts to limit age identifying questions on job applications. And a recent outcome of that activity is the Colorado's new Job Application Fairness Act, which comes into effect on July 1st. And it prohibits employers from asking age identifying questions such as age, date of birth, dates of attendance, and graduation from educational institutions, which is an excellent move towards other organizations and countries following suit. We've helped organize social media campaigns to support such activities as Older Americans Month, which is held in May, Hire an Older Worker Week, which takes place the last week of September, Ageism Awareness Day, which takes place in October, and International Day of the Older Person, which is recognized on October 1st. We have plans and goals for the future to continue advocating for stronger workplace age discrimination laws, for more funding to provide upskilling and reskilling to older workers so they've got more opportunity to get and remain employed, to fund Encore entrepreneurship programs for older workers, and funding for publicizing these programs. In addition, we want funding available to provide incentives to employers so they will hire and retain older workers. So we're always looking for new ideas. We welcome you to join the group and give us your support. And you'll get an opportunity today in the breakout room to share any ideas that you might have. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Carolyn. Next on is starting and sustaining an Encore organization. And I'm Barb Richardson. I founded Indie Encore here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I co-lead the group with Doug Dixon. And we are one of the groups that started out of a coffee chat. We're more internally focused. We exist to provide a peer-to-peer platform for people involved as founders and leaders in nonprofit organization, as well as for-profit entities. And I would say right now, the members are about half and half. And the reason it was started, like I said, it started as a coffee chat about a year ago. And as a founder, I was meeting one-on-one with people that had established Encore organizations. And although those conversations were very, very valuable, I was really thinking that there were other people that had the same concerns. And that's why we scheduled a coffee chat that became 2 coffee chats and eventually evolved in an organized affinity group. Like I said, it's pretty much a peer-to-peer platform for those people that come to our roughly monthly meetings. It's a conversational format with a focused topic, and the topics arrive out of members' needs, and sometimes they're because something's identified at one meeting that we decide that we want to continue discussing it or bringing resources in. It's a conversational format that focused on that topic, but we've also augmented it with guest presenters, again, based on the suggestions from the group members or their needs, because something comes up in the discussion that we seek a resource for that. Currently, there's about 30 to 35 people that are on the roster of the group, and our monthly attendance is about 15. So it's a comfortable number to really allow participation from everyone that is there. Some of the topics that we've had were leadership, establishing an advisory board or board of directors, founder succession, partnerships, how you build relationships and make connections that add expertise, build visibility, impact, help with promotion of your organization, bring in revenue. And that continued to conversation partnerships too, that we continued, but we concentrated on growth and impact focused on marketing and outreach. Revenue opportunities, marketing is always a big one. Vision and what progress you've made towards accomplishing that vision. Groupthink. Our last conversation in May was presented by Hively. So we focused on one organization launch, how they sought accelerator funding, and that brought up a big discussion about how do you identify those venture capital, especially if you're in the nonprofit, the for-profit space. And our July meeting, we've invited Sarah Croft from 5-4. She's a marketing and a venture capitalist group that focuses on startups and emerging initiatives. So we think that that will be a lively presentation with a lot of input from our members. We meet monthly for an hour unless there's a conflict with another Encore monthly presentation. And it's the fourth Wednesday from noon to 1 Eastern time. So we have scheduled it so that it's convenient for everyone. We stick to an hour. And like I said, it's really driven by the Encore members that are part of the group. We invite others to join us. Our next presentation, we especially invite the entrepreneur group because I think they would be very interested in what Sarah Croft will bring to the table. And with that, I pass it on to Mary.
Thank you. And Erin, if you could tee up some of my slides, thank you. And that's such a good note, Barb, to remind me to mention, which I have on my slides, the importance of collaboration across all of these groups to amplify our impact. So I am Mary Cronin. I am an entrepreneurship professor at Boston College. I am myself a social entrepreneur, and I work with a particular focus as a business advisor and consultant for entrepreneurs over 50 who are looking to make an impact in areas like sustainability and other social justice issues. So that's me, and I'm proud and happy to be co-leading this group with Doug Dixon, who really is everywhere in setting up these affinity groups and is, as if you don't know already, just an amazing leader in the Encore network. So Doug and I, as Doug mentioned, have launched this group just last year. So we're among the babies of the affinity groups, which we expect will be a growing family of robust and fully impactful part of the Encore network. So briefly, we of course have a mission, which is part of what you do when you set up an affinity group. And our mission is to champion the opportunity to explore the many paths of entrepreneurship for anyone over 50, including starting a business. So very importantly, from the get-go, we wanted to recognize that there are many ways to be entrepreneurial after 50, including nonprofit, including solopreneur, including contributing in a variety of ways as a board member, or indeed providing investment and support for other kinds of startup organizations. So that is very important in this mission of the Entrepreneurship Affinity Group. And in teaching a course on entrepreneurship, and I'm sure many of you have heard this in other courses and workshops and programs, always start with your why. Why did we feel there needed to be an entrepreneurship, in particular, affinity group in the Encore network? And in part, we saw it as something that was really important to celebrate and include in the Encore network messaging all of the positive impact and social change that founders over 50 and entrepreneurs of all types over 50 are accomplishing and making today. Importantly, and really even less visible, I would say, is that older entrepreneurs are really underserved by most of the traditional entrepreneurship groups, whether those be incubators and accelerators or entrepreneurship centers. And Barb just mentioned venture funding. Well, statistically, the odds are less than 1% that anyone over 50 will receive venture funding. That's just a reality in today's entrepreneurship climate. So helping people to understand that, but also helping to change that, is a very important why for this affinity group. And we feel very strongly that it is time to make those changes, expand awareness, create more opportunities, and provide support wherever we can as an affinity group. So that's our why, and we're sticking to it, but we're happy to expand it. So far, as I said, we're new, and so we have a few activities, mainly in the line of programming, which have been, I believe, very successful and a great start, with a lot more to come. So we did have, as our core theme is the diverse ways to be an entrepreneur, we decided that was how we would start, with a program called The Many Ways to Be an Encore Entrepreneur. And this graphic, which we used to promote it, really reflects how we organized that program, which is we invited someone who had started a venture-funded company against all odds in the sustainability and water purification sector. We also invited someone who had decided, after retiring from a career of 30 years in hospitality, to open up and own a franchise business in landscaping. We had contractors, we had advisors, we had community builders, we had Paula, yay Paula, thank you for that, coming to talk to us about just starting a nonprofit, and then having that nonprofit be acquired for this mission that she talked to you about in New Mexico. So we had a great response to that, and we are planning more. So as you just heard, with the Over 50 group, we are collaborating for programming around being a solopreneur. And in our core theme of collaboration and co-sponsorship, there's a group that Doug and I are both involved in called Founders Over 55. And we are collaborating with them to co-sponsor a program later this month, which is called Pitch for Your Peers, which is a recognition that, in fact, you're probably not going to be pitching to venture capitalists. when you want to start something new as an older founder. But there's a lot of reasons to have a pitch and to practice that, whether it's to talk to the community, to encourage volunteers, to just get your message out. So Founders 55 sponsors and hosts a pitch for your peers, the non-competition pitch for older founders, and that's coming up later in June. And then we are very committed to social entrepreneurship and to social change and addressing the problems that we are aware of and speaking about in the advocacy affinity group. And early 2025, we plan a program on social entrepreneurship, which will include nonprofits as well as for-profits. Next, Erin. So again, touching on our themes and what's next and how we see ourselves achieving this mission as an affinity group. So a big priority for us this year, and I'm sure into the indefinite future, is outreach to like-minded, purpose-driven groups, whether they be for-profit, nonprofit, or public sector groups, to explore collaboration opportunities. And as someone else said, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We know there's a lot of great resources already out there, but we do want to increase awareness of other groups and co-sponsor programs and projects and events. And the easy reach is the events, but we want to go deeper and also start to explore collaboration on programs and longer term projects in this particular part of our priority. We are working again with the other affinity groups and with anyone who has resources, and I saw some great ones go by in the chat already today, to identify the resources, and then we want to facilitate access to those resources and not let them just die on some website where nobody looks, right? That's always the challenge. And we know that, but then we go ahead and create another list of resources. And so we are the entrepreneurial group. We want to do something more innovative and creative to really facilitate and engage access to those resources. And pinpointing gaps is something I see that our group is working and can be spearheading. You know, what are the access barriers for people over 50 who have great ideas, are innovative, want to put them into action, and are not quite sure which path towards entrepreneurship works best for them, or they know what they want to do. They want to get funding for a great company, but they've come across a lot of barriers. Well, how can we help and work collaboratively with the partnership network we see trying to put together? So I'm going to wrap this up and say that we see ourselves serving as a voice for over 50 entrepreneurs. I personally am an advocate for and have written about and have a book about founders over 50 who are building venture-funded companies and high-growth companies, and that's part of the word we want to get out. It's not easy, but it's possible for older founders to achieve that, as well as being solopreneurs and key contributors to nonprofits. So last slide. And therefore, we are looking forward to new ideas. We aspire to be agile, open-minded, and effective in what we do as an entrepreneurship group. So that is our mission. And if you are interested in hearing more, I hope you will reach out to me and Doug directly, or that you will consider coming to our meetings, which are again once a month and publicized on the Encore Network website so that you can find out and register. Thank you.
Okay, Wow, that was a lot of great information. Thank you to all of the speakers. Now we're going to split into smaller groups, breakout sessions, so everyone gets a chance to discuss further. I'm sure the wheels are churning in your heads. So this will give you an opportunity to ask questions, contribute ideas, and think about which affinity group you may want to join. There are so many awesome initiatives, and we need as much help as we can get. So just a brief point on logistics. You will see a pop-up inviting you to a randomly assigned breakout room, which I believe Erin is orchestrating as we speak. You click to join and you'll automatically be taken to that session. There are facilitators to help guide the discussion as needed, and they will be taking notes. The sessions will end potentially somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes. And then you will automatically be brought back here to the general session. So we encourage you all to join. We want to hear your opinions and any feedback. And again, the goal is to collaborate and, get as many folks to join and engage in these affinity groups as possible. So Erin, are you able to get us into groups?
Maggie?
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Maggie, while we're waiting, can I share something with the group that I think is very inspiring? It's something I saw on LinkedIn yesterday.
Sure, of course.
7-year-old Virginia man is suing a big organization called Raytheon, Raytheon, for age discrimination, for putting in their ads recent college graduates. And it's a beginning of a class action suit supported by ARP and 2 law firms.
Wow, very interesting.
So progress is being made.
Yes, and I know a few people have asked in the chat if they will be receiving the slides and the recording. Yes, everyone will be receiving slides and the recording afterwards. We'll send that out for you. Any other questions while we're waiting? Please feel free to use the chat or unmute and ask us.
Are we getting assigned randomly to breakout groups?
Yes, randomly, along with facilitators, which I imagine is probably what's
Yes.
making it difficult, is that we have to have we have pre-assigned facilitators, mainly just to make sure that the conversation flows and everyone has a chance to speak. And so Erin is probably making sure that we're all assigned into these groups.
Hi, I have asked there in the chat section if there's a link to what